Welcome, board members and guests, to the Wednesday, September 27th, 2023 meeting of the Placer County Transportation Planning Agency, Placer County Airport Land Use Commission, Western Placer Consolidated Transportation Services Agency, and the Placer County Local Transportation Authority. Public comment. After I open an item for public comment, those joining us by Zoom webinar can signal they wish to speak by clicking the raise hand button located at the middle bottom of the Zoom webinar window. If you are joining over the phone, you can press *9. PCTPA staff will call out individuals one by one who have indicated they wish to speak. If you experience technical difficulties and are unable to provide public comment during this meeting, please email your comment to solvysable at ssabol@pctpa.net. Thank you all. And would you do us the honor of the flag salute? Okay.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Yay. So. Get to the agenda here. Roll call. So please.
Broadway,
Here.
Burris, Cortez,
Here.
Dowden Calvillo,
Present.
Holmes,
Here.
Joyner,
Here.
Jones,
Here.
Wilkins. We have a quorum.
Oh, great. Okay. So item C, agenda review. Matt?
Madam Chair, the agenda remains unchanged. Ooh, volume's high this morning.
Okay. Okay, so we'll move on then to item D. We don't have to vote to approve the agenda, do we? So we, okay,
Now we have a quorum.
okay. Item D then, AB 2449. Matt?
Yeah, Madam Chair, we have a quorum of board members who are either present or participating remotely with access, so no board action is necessary.
Okay, then item E, approval of action minutes from August 23rd, 2023.
Move approval.
I will second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second.
Broadway,
Yes.
Burris, Cortez,
Aye.
Dowden Calvillo,
Aye.
Holmes,
Aye.
Joyner,
Aye.
Jones,
Aye.
Wilkins.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Okay, item F then, approval of action minutes from August 30th, 2023.
Move approval.
Second.
All right, motion approval.
Broadway,
Yes.
Cortez,
Aye.
Dowden Calvillo,
Aye.
Holmes, Joyner,
Aye.
Jones,
Aye.
Wilkins. Motion passes. Okay.
Welcome, Bruce. Uh-huh.
And traffic wasn't that bad, Bruce. I came.
Okay, moving on to item G, public comment. Persons may address the board on items that are not on this agenda. Please limit comments to 3 minutes. Anyone?
No raised hands here.
Okay, that's amazing. Move on to item H, consent calendar. Placer County Transportation Planning Agency. These items are expected to be routine and non-controversial. They will be acted upon by the board with one action without discussion. Any board member, staff member, or interested citizen may request an item be removed from the consent calendar for discussion. Anybody like to do so?
No.
Okay.
No.
Second.
Public comment?
No public comment.
Okay.
Who seconded?
It was
Dowden Calvillo.
Faster on the draw, Bruce.
Yeah, they're quick today.
You know, we should have a standing rule that a motion comes from one side and a second.
Everybody's wide awake this morning.
Broadway,
Yes.
Cortez,
Aye.
Dowden Calvillo,
Aye.
Holmes,
Aye.
Outishelt,
Aye.
Joyner, Jones,
Aye.
Wilkins.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Oh, no, I thought I turned it on.
Okay.
I don't know who.
Moving on to item I, leasing agreement for the PCTPA offices.
Yeah, Madam Chair, as everybody in the board is aware of, We're in the process of selling 299 Nevada, and we're in the process of looking for office space. We're going to need to enter into a lease agreement before the next board meeting. We currently have 4 shortlisted potential places, and we're doing LOIs. Ready to sign up to a 5-year lease up to 500, and there's a misprint up to 575,000 for that office space. So the action we're looking for today is to authorize the executive director to enter into negotiations and sign a lease agreement. I'll entertain questions.
Madam Chair, I do have a question. Are you able to disclose where those locations are? Is that something you want to do offline?
No, I'm happy to disclose we've looked at space in Lincoln, and we're also looking at 4 potential locations in and around different parts of Roseville.
Okay, so no Auburn. So Roseville and Lincoln.
No, and I mean, if I could, through the chair, so we did a desktop analysis and we started with about 69 different office locations.
Oh, okay.
And then we narrowed it down to about 12. So I looked at space in Auburn, Penryn, all over, but the sort of space that we're looking for, it's almost like, basketball, the final 4, if you will, do happen to be in Roseville, with the exception of a potential space in Lincoln as well.
Okay. All right.
And I do want to point out quickly, just as part of that, one of the things we're happy about is the buyer of 299 Nevada is another public sector agency, and they will be bringing at least 25 positions to Auburn. So while 7 will be moving on from PCTPA, there will be 25 that are being replaced and will be in 299 Nevada. So we're just, as a sidebar, we are happy about that as part of the deal.
Okay. Thank you.
Mhm.
Let me ask you a question. Then, any chance you're looking at space across from the hall from me?
It was space that we looked at, but
It's
the
very
number of
large.
offices and the square footage didn't work.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It's very
yeah.
large.
But one of the locations is close.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay. We'll have to have lunch. Anybody else have questions?
Parking,
Parking?
are it adequate parking at all of the final 4?
Yeah, for the city of Roseville, for some reason, they make every landlord give you 4 parking spots per 1,000 square feet. So yeah, it's all about the same. The space that we're looking at ranges from 3,800 to 4,200 square feet. It's got 7 offices for staff. It's got the ability to expand by 2 or potentially 3 employees, depending on what we might need to do with the measure. And then they all either have an open workroom or a conference room that are large enough for us to host meetings when we need to.
Okay, do I hear a motion? Okay, we have, oh yes, we need to open for public comment. Sorry, jumped the gun. Any online? Okay. So,
Yes, that wasn't.
Amanda made the motion.
I will second the motion noting the modification to the agenda item to reference 575,000.
Very good, thank you.
Broadway,
Yes.
Cortez. Aye. Bowden Calfeo,
Aye.
Holmes.
Aye.
Howdy
Aye.
Joyner, Jones,
Aye.
Wilkins.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Okay, moving on to item J, traffic congestion report presentation. Corey, take it away.
Awesome. Thank you, Madam Chair. Good morning, members of the board. It's great to be here this morning, and I'm going to give you a quick update on some data analysis that staff has done on traffic congestion on some of our major highway corridors throughout Placer County. This is something that my predecessor, Aaron Hoyt, used to do. He'd come every couple months and do an update on traffic congestion recovery post-pandemic and how levels were comparing to pre-COVID levels. And so there was some interest in bringing that back. So I'll be taking you through that update and kind of showing you a comparison of last year versus this year, as well as some kind of pre-pandemic numbers versus current numbers. Just to kind of give a quick overview, though, there's a number of differences with the data that we're showing today versus what was shown in the past with my predecessor. We've actually transitioned from kind of the Caltrans data to what we call INRIX big data. It's aggregated cell phone and GPS data. It's a lot more reliable than the PENS data from Caltrans, which relies on the sensors that are placed in the roadway and are often down for maintenance. So we looked specifically at the AM and PM peak periods to kind of get sense of when the worst congestion is, as well as a 24-hour data, and then only kind of looking at the average speed data. So we didn't look at any traffic volumes. That's another big change from the previous reports where we looked a lot at the traffic volumes on the interstates and on Highway 65. INRIC's big data is speed data only. So we'll be looking at kind of the congestion hotspots based on the change in the speed. So first, let's start with the Highway 65. So we looked at the corridor kind of in between I-80 and Lincoln Boulevard. So what I'm going to do is I have a series of maps and charts that I'm going to show you. So these all reference the same point of time, and that's June. I'll be comparing 2022 with 2023, and I'll show you kind of the differences in the congestion between the two time periods. This is for the AM peak period on Highway 65. I only looked at the midday, the midweek days. So we're looking at Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday. Again, the purpose was to try and get when the worst congestion is happening. So you can see that in the AM, it has the pretty typical congestion in the southbound direction around Pleasant Grove Boulevard. This is in 2022. Then if you switch it over to 2023, you can see that if you look over by Blue Oaks Boulevard, that queue in the southbound direction is starting to lengthen. And the numbers that are above the three exits kind of at the south end of the corridor shows the change in the average speed in the northbound and the southbound direction. So you can see that there is a little bit of a drop, 2 or 3%, may not seem like a lot, but keep in mind, this is only 1 year. So if you're thinking, 5, 10 years down the road, if it continues to degenerate in speed by the same rate, then, in 10 years, you're looking at a 30% drop in speed. Most people probably wouldn't notice a 2% drop in speed over 1 year, but they certainly would notice a 30% drop. In the PM peak period, you can see that now that northbound congestion over there by Pleasant Grove and Galleria starts to show up, as well as the typical southbound congestion. And then when you compare that with the current year, 2023, the queue lengthens quite a bit over there at Blue Oaks Boulevard, and then especially over here at Galleria. Whereas before, if you go back to the previous slide, you can see in 2022, it's a little hard to see, but in the northbound direction over there at Pleasant Grove, it's kind of the queue stops right in between Galleria and Pleasant Grove. And then if you go to the current year, that queue lengthens pretty significantly all the way back prior to even reaching the Galleria Boulevard exit. You saw a little bit more dramatic drops in speeds, but again, not a huge amount in 1 year, but the effect can be compounded year over year. So I'm looking kind of at it in chart form. This shows traffic throughout the day. This looks like a lot of information. I'm just going to kind of highlight a couple main points. One of the main points I wanted to show is that if you look at the left side, this is showing 65 southbound, particularly at Blue Oaks Boulevard and Pleasant Grove Boulevard. You can see that the AM and the PM 2-hour peak periods are highlighted, but at those locations, the traffic is not just in the morning and the PM commute hour, it's all day. You're in congestion all the way from about 6 or 7 a.m. all the way to 7 o'clock at night. In varying degrees, it does lighten up a little bit in the middle of the day, but for the most part, you are pretty much sitting in traffic all the way through there. And this also shows kind of a comparison between 2019 and all the way up to the current year. The next slide shows just the pre-pandemic levels, which is the red line, and then the current year 2023, which is the green line. So you can see that at least particularly at Blue Oaks and Pleasant Grove southbound, traffic is already back and then some. So we're seeing speeds that are lower than pre-pandemic levels already just 4 years later. Okay, so let's move on to the 80 corridor. So we looked at specifically Riverside Avenue all the way up to 49 up here in Auburn. So you can see this is showing the morning peak period in 2022. Again, this is just the midweek days. So we didn't include any Mondays or Fridays or weekends. You can see that relatively speaking, compared to 65 in the mornings, it's relatively light. If you switch over to the current year, picks up a little bit, not a huge amount. We do see some decrease in speeds of 5 to 6% over there at Taylor Road and at Douglas Boulevard, but comparatively speaking, still a little bit less congestion than on 65. That changes pretty quickly when you look at the PM peak period. As anybody who's driven 80 in the afternoons would know, over there on the westbound side of 80, we see quite a bit of traffic. Over there approaching Douglas Boulevard. You can see a little bit there approaching 65 over by Eureka and Taylor. This is last year. Now switch it over to this year, and there's a pretty significant drop in speed over there by Douglas Boulevard. That queue lengthened up quite a bit over there on eastbound 80 approaching 65, Taylor Road and Roseville Parkway. And you can see that you can see the red is a little bit hard to see, but you can see the red there's lengthening quite a bit up on the eastbound side. And again, looking at it in chart form, you can see that at least compared to 65, the traffic is a little bit more contained to the PM peak hours, but there are some pretty significant slowdowns, at least particularly on the westbound side of Douglas and on the eastbound side over there at Taylor approaching 65. And coincidentally, these are pretty close to the exact project limits of the 80 aux lanes that just broke ground a couple months ago. And then comparing the pre-pandemic versus kind of the current speeds, you can see that in a lot of cases, they're mostly similar, but 2023 levels have exceeded pre-pandemic levels in terms of the speed reductions, particularly over there at westbound 80 at Douglas. Okay, so now let's head up the hill. Let's look at the 89 and 267 corridors. So for this one, I actually did a little bit slightly different analysis. We looked at, instead of looking at the weekdays, we looked at only the weekend hours. So we looked at Friday, Saturday, Sunday data because up in Tahoe, as most of you know, that's when the majority of the congestion happens, is on the weekends when there's higher amounts of tourism. So on 89 and 267, there's a little bit of congestion there, kind of at the north end by the county lines, and then heading into Tahoe City and Kings Beach. When you compare that with this year, there's actually in some cases a improvement in speed over there coming into Kings Beach. There's a slight improvement in the northbound direction on 267, as well as, and then there's a reduction there over there coming into the Tahoe City Y, where it meets 28 meets 89. And if you look at the PM peak, pretty similar types of congestion, a little bit coming into Kings Beach and Tahoe City. And then again, showing a slight reduction, not a huge amount in Kings Beach and coming into the Tahoe City Y on in the 4 p.m. to 6 p.m. hours. So I'll kind of speed through these charts a little bit. This is mainly just to show that, at least in the Tahoe area, that the congestion, there's not as many peaks and valleys as you would see on the major corridors in the South Placer area. Traffic stays relatively consistent throughout the day. The other thing is that in this case, the pre-pandemic levels are actually lower speeds than we have currently. So traffic in this case is not quite as, we'd say, recovered as pre-pandemic levels as it is in the South Placer area. On Highway 267, you can see there's a little bit more of a dip on 267 eastbound at Kings Beach, coming into that stoplight there, right at Highway 28, where it backs up. You can see it's a little more pronounced in the afternoon. And same thing where the levels of traffic, at least, pre-pandemic versus post, not as recovered as in the South Placer area. Okay, so that was a lot of information. What does it all mean?
Yeah, thank you.
You're welcome, Supervisor Holmes. So just kind of in summary, traffic speeds really have reduced on all the major corridors, especially on 80 and 65. A lot of the percentages were small. It may not seem like a lot. To most average commuters, you wouldn't notice a 2 to 3% drop in speed. That might be a mile an hour or two. But if you add that up year over year, as things continue to worsen, then it becomes a much bigger problem. You're seeing a lot of longer queues, especially on 65 over there by Blue Oaks and Galleria. The queues have lengthened pretty significantly. And then, of course, the largest changes in average speed were over there on westbound 80 in the afternoon. And then up in Tahoe, traffic is slowing in some cases, but not quite as much on this as in the South Placer area. And that concludes my presentation. Happy to take questions.
Questions?
So as I come home from downtown on 8065 in the afternoon, if I look over into the westbound lane, I see an awful lot of, tractor trailer trucks. Is there any way to do traffic management so they're not on the road at that hour, or would it just not make a difference? Is it just?
If I could through the chair, it is a tactic that folks have wrestled with for a long time in trying to segregate sort of goods or freight movement. To be honest, one of the things you find is it's really not the truckers who have any sort of control over when they, it's the retailers. It's basically Walmart or an equivalent of Walmart. And they basically say, hey, you have this 15-minute window to hit our dock. And if you don't, you're going to turn around and go home heavy. So for instance, when I used to work in Florida, there were sections of Interstate 95 and Florida's Turnpike that ran within 300 yards of one another. And we tried to get tractor trailers off of 95 and onto the Turnpike and vice versa. And there was a lot of thought that, well, if you reduce the tolls for these 5-axle vehicles, they'll all move over to 95 and, or they'll move off of 95, excuse me, and they'll be attracted to the Turnpike. And we cut the tolls in half for a year, and less than 3% of the traffic moved. And the reason is they just build pricing or time into their budget. What they really want to do is hit the local street. No, it's a great question. They want to hit the local street network. Yeah, the answer is no, without some sort of physical segregation or truck only lanes. Yeah.
You can lead a trucker to water, but you can't make them.
No,
change
they
that.
can't control it. Yeah, yeah. It gets into the retailers
thank
and wholesalers.
No,
Yeah.
thank you.
Yeah.
Well, beyond that, remember why the interstates were built. First, military movement, second, commerce, only third is our traffic.
That's right.
True.
Yeah.
I do have a question though, on some of the statistics on 65, when you're southbound, you could be coming from Lincoln doing 65 or, and then by the time before you get to Pleasant Grove, you're screeching to a halt of about 30. So that's more than 2-3-5%, isn't it? From 65 down to 30?
Yeah, so I can explain that. So the 2 to 3% refers to the change in speed at that one location, 2022 versus 2023.
Oh.
So for example, if in June of 2022, the average speed on 65 southbound was 35 miles an hour at Pleasant Grove Boulevard, then I then compared that with 2023's average speed, which might have been 33 miles an hour, for example.
Okay. So
If
that's
y'all
a
are getting through
change.
there at
That's
35 miles an hour, you're doing fine.
not at peak times, but it's still bad enough when you're going 60 and you have to screech down to 20. That's not fun.
It's worse when you have to screech down to 2.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, and to follow up on the chair's question, so you're averaging it for an hour, right? So that screeching halt, which we've all experienced, or going northbound or southbound, doesn't last for the whole hour.
So what it is it's an average of a 2-hour period. So either 7 a.m. to 9 a.m. or 4 p.m. to 6 p.m., depending on which period it is. It's an average of the observed speed at that location in those 2 hours every Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday throughout the month. So essentially the purpose is to try and pick out what would be like the worst traffic times, which would be typically commute hours, and then average that out throughout the entire month. So again, using kind of the same example, if the average speed is 35 miles an hour at Pleasant Grove Boulevards in the southbound direction, then that means that, it averaged that every single Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday throughout the entire month.
With a 2-hour window.
Within the 2-hour window, yes.
Within the 2 hour.
Correct.
Statistics.
But you're also averaging the low speed anyway. You're not calculating the change from 65 to whatever it's
Right.
slowing down. You're
Right.
just averaging how slow it was last year to how slow it is this year.
Apples. to
Correct.
apples.
Correct.
Yeah.
To try and compare apples to apples. Yes.
Okay.
Cool.
All righty then. That was info only. So now we'll go on to the executive director's report.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And first of all, I want to thank Vice Chair Broadway. We actually had a conversation about this, and he said, you know, you guys used to do this data stuff and come to us and talk to us about all this, and I haven't seen it in a while. And so we picked that up and, you know, worked with Corey, and are going to be bringing this to you. I think probably biannually, bringing this to you every, you know, maybe twice a year is probably the right cadence, not quarterly. You know, if you do want it more frequently, Corey monitors it as part of his job, so we can do that. But I think we'll bring this back to you twice a year. Just FYI.
Sounds good.
Quickly moving on to the executive director's report. Again, regarding 299 Nevada Station, buyers inspectors were in yesterday, didn't find anything substantial. They'll be coming back with their IT folks and some folks next week. So no major issues. We're looking good for a sale in early December. And again, by October 16th, we'll be fully committed. They will take their $100,000 refundable. It'll turn into $200,000 non-refundable, and we'll be locked in and, you know, very confident that we'll close in early December. Moving on, as you are all aware about our RTP update, the whole staff has been out in your communities, and at some of your boards already are on their way to you. So thank you to Mike and Corey for their leadership there. But we're getting really good feedback from the general population about what we're doing. And, you know, I think they're very thankful that we're out there and listening to them. So we've gotten a lot of good feedback from the population on our RTP work. Want to give a little shout out to Corey. Corey came to me and he said, you know, there's this ATP grant. It's due in a couple of weeks and we haven't done a whole lot on it, but I found out about it and I think we should put in for it. And I said, okay, let's do it. And Corey was the lead author, and lo and behold, we just won $420,000. Yeah.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
what that means is we're going to do a countywide active transportation plan, which is something we really haven't ever done this way. And what's great about this timing is, as you know, if we go forward with the measure, there'll be a programmatic bucket of money for this category of work called ATP. What Corey's going to work on is getting us to a project list, to actually saying this is the prioritized list of projects for this sort of category, which can then later be funded through measure money and other sources and it also gives us the ability to go out for other grants as well. So good news there. So in order of magnitude, and maybe the mayor of Roseville wants to say something about this, but of course we just found out that we got the last money for Sacramento to Roseville third tracking. So $42.5 million. And what's really important is not just the fact that it's that much money, but it's the last money in. So we now have everything we need to do phase one of the third track, which gets us from 1 train to 3. Mr. Mayor, I don't know if you'd like to comment on that.
Yeah, no, just to add to that, as you know, I'm Vice Chair of the Capitol Court Joint Powers Authority. So Friday, the Deputy Administrator for the Federal Railroad Administration is supposed to be at our Roseville Train Depot. I'd invite you all to join us. There'll be a number of speakers. Congress will be back in Washington, D.C. But it is a huge deal. You know, I just happened to be, as I've said to some people, I just happened to be standing on the platform when the train came in. There have been decades of people that have been working to secure this. And what's really great about it is that this will be the catalyst that slingshots to 10 trips a day into the future. And so really exciting. I'm waiting. I just texted the managing director of Capitol Quarter to see if they finalize the agenda for Friday, but it's 9 o'clock-ish at the Roseville Train Depot. So I hope you all can join. You can take the train down. But anyway, thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Just,
Uh,
I have a quick question on that. When do they anticipate work starting?
Yes.
Do we know?
Like really all complex things that are overnight successes, a quarter century in the making. I think it goes live 2028.
2028 is when it will be
Yeah.
start.
In service.
Start
No,
or finish?
it will
Done.
start, but it will
Finish.
be
Yes.
operational.
Operational by 2028. Okay, but it will start
And even though
soon.
we've gotten to this enormously significant milestone, and we're still work to go. right?
Yes, sir. Yeah, they're actively in, a certain percentage of design right now, right? And that
Yeah.
work will now carry forward. There'll be utilities work. There's work at the yard that UP has required. There's overlay track. There's all types of different things. But yeah, it's
Right.
ongoing and it will now continue service to start hopefully 28.
Hopefully. I'll be the first passenger on the second trip, first passenger, second trip.
And then just lastly, I'll just quickly move on and close. I know we're running long a little bit here, but regarding our funding measure activities, what you're going to see, just a little bit of teaser in October, we're going to come to you with fresh polling. So FM3 will be here. We'll give you a little bit of a marketing update, but mainly we're going to share with you our latest polling and survey data, which they're out in the field right now doing. So that'll be exciting. So buckle up for October.
Mhm.
Yeah. Madam Chair, that's the end of my report.
Okay, alrighty. Anyone have any questions? No?
Oh, I just have, I don't have questions.
Question, comment?
Huh?
I
don't have any comment on this item.
Okay. Board direction to the staff. Anyone have?
I was in Monterey last week for our RCRC meeting. And I had to be back here in Auburn on Friday at 9 o'clock. So I think to myself, I'm gonna have dinner, leave at 8 o'clock and no traffic. I'm gonna shoot right up. I'll be home by 11:30. I forgot that 680, they're doing highway construction, I-80 highway construction. So I was a little bit, thankfully I filled up my gas tank before I left, but I got home at 1:30. So anyhow, so if you think you're gonna cut a fat hog in the night, it's not gonna work.
Madam Chair, no direction. I just want to, first of all, thank you, Matt and Corey, for the presentation relative to the congestion. And again, we were receiving regular reports on that. I think it's helpful for us to understand how residents of Placer County are being impacted relative to our roadways and the importance of the actions that this body is taking to help improve that. Just listening to comments from this board and some of their experiences, whether it be 10 miles an hour or no miles per hour, certainly we know that individuals are being impacted. So thank you for that. And I do want to also recognize Corey and Mike. Fantastic presentation to our council last night. Appreciate the representation of the team, your professionalism, and you updating our council on all things PCTPA. So thank you.
And then I'll add to that also is having seen you guys man your booth at both the Hot Chili Cool Cars and then at the Taste of Lincoln the other night. How's that going for you? Are you reaching the public that you're intending to reach? How's it going?
Yeah, I think it's going really, really well. And I mean, we had how many at Rockland? Was it over 200, Mike? Yeah, so we had over 200, we had less at Colfax and I think Taste of Lincoln. Corey, what was the number?
Somewhere around 80 to 100.
80 to 100.
that we were actually engaged with and were able to hand out cards and stuff.
Yeah. The biggest lesson is if you want to attract people, have a wheel. Yeah. The wheel is, we actually ran out of tchotchke at Hot Chili Cool Cars in Rockland. And so had to pull the wheel back. And then I think, but the wheel attracts the kids,
Yeah.
Mike and Corey have been very thoughtful about how they suck in the kids and then they get the adults to do this.
Yeah.
So it's been really, it's the power of the wheel.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that nice wheel for the Endurance Capital of the World Committee. And yes, it just attracts. It's a big wheel.
It's
and,
amazing.
People are like, oh,
Yeah. And we have on the side been looking at sort of what we have as our giveaways. And we've got some ideas to sort of up our game next time around.
Yes,
So,
exactly. And the thing at Taste of Lincoln, it made it a little bit difficult being right next to a booth that was serving really, really good food. They were all in line for the food and ignoring you guys.
Yeah, that ceviche was yummy. So,
If you guys don't mind, I was literally going to say the same thing. I wanted to thank Mike. I talked to him earlier before, but thank you so much for sitting through our long meeting. You are super professional and we really appreciated your whole presentation. And I wanted to thank you guys for your upcoming presence at our Eggplant Festival and Solvy's help getting your sponsorship and you guys getting a booth and everything. So we're really excited to have you. So October 7th, Loomis Eggplant Festival, come out and experience all things Loomis. But thank you guys so
We'll
much.
be there. Yeah. So are they going to give eggplants away? Like, how's this work?
I do believe that we are, because that was one of the things I was like, are we actually gonna have eggplant at our
Okay.
eggplant festival? So I do believe that there will be some, and then we're working on some different,
Just joke.
maybe food items or something that our local businesses can offer up. We're working on that.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think eggplant recipes, huh? A little bit of a cooking contest.
Yeah, that would be ideal. We're working on it. Yeah, the chamber and the Lions Club and the Seroptimists are kind of doing a collab effort. So
Good.
we're excited about it.
Looking forward to it. I think it'll be
Yeah.
a lot of fun.
Well, I'm looking forward to seeing all of you guys.
You bet. You bet. Okay, well, then moving on to item M, informational items. Their technical advisory committee minutes, status reports, et cetera. And our next meeting will be October 18th. We had to move it from the 25th to the 18th because of the Placer Business Alliance trip to DC. So everybody knows that. Anything else to come before the board? No? Hey, we're adjourned.